A loose headset is not only going to probably drive you mad out on a ride because it's going to feel really clunky and rattly, but it could, if you carry on riding for prolonged periods like that, do untold damage to your frame and forks. So here's how to make sure that doesn't happen. So just to be clear, the component we're talking about when we refer to a headset is really the bearings that sit inside the frame, top and bottom of the head tube. Sometimes they're external, some bikes do use an external system still, but predominantly now they're internal, integrated into the frame, and they're basically there to allow you to freely turn your handlebars. Simple as that. When they're loose, as is the case on this bike, because I've deliberately made it loose, you'll find that there's a horrible rattly noise to the front end of the bike. And if you pull the front brake on and just put your thumb and forefinger either side of the head tube where it meets the top cap there, you'll be able to feel and even see visible movement. This is a really loose headset, so yeah. Okay, so not only is that really horrible when you're out riding, but it's also potentially doing untold damage to the inside of the frame and or the fork. You know, these days, to save weight, bearings which look a little bit like this is an example of a headset bearing. They sit up inside there, top and bottom, and they mount directly into the frame and onto the fork. So, you know, if you're riding with it loose and that's just jiggling around in there the whole time, you could be wearing away the material of a carbon fork, which could potentially be very dangerous as well. So yeah, ultimately a loose headset is not something you want. So how do we fix it? Luckily, it's a really simple fix. Essentially, this top cap governs the tightness of your headset in terms of compressing those bearings together to make them tight. To adjust it then, first need to just loosen the stem clamp bolts here. So these bolts which hold that stem firmly onto the steerer tube need to be loosened off. And the reason for that is now that stem, as you can see, is loose, so therefore it's free to move up and down and be compressed further. To do that then, as I said, it's all about the top cap. And this isn't a case of just tightening this down until it feels tight. It's a little bit more of a kind of a bit of feel required here and a little bit of trial and error, because what you want is to just gauge where that bearing is still loose and then just pop your Allen key in and go just a quarter of a turn further, and then again just feel, yeah, still a little bit loose. So tiny adjustments at a time. That's so much better because then you can find that optimal point where the bearing is perfectly preloaded and is not going to be damaged and do its job correctly. So yeah, now okay, so we've reached that point where the slack has gone. So what I would do is I would just back off just a tiny bit, just to recheck that. Yeah, the slack's now back. So I know that that is the point, that quarter of a turn there is where that slack disappears. Yeah. So that's pretty much your optimum. I would probably go just the tiniest amount past that. So you know you're not really over tightening and compressing that bearing. You've got it spot on there. And now I would make sure my stem is straight, obviously. That's important. There we go. And then you can retighten your stem bolts. And really that is predominantly all you need to do. I mean, at this point you would definitely need to just check the torque settings on these bolts and make sure you're tightening them up correctly to the torque setting. If you want to know more about using a torque wrench, there is a video also on our YouTube channel, but I'm just going to tighten these up to 5 Newton meters, which is the recommended setting. There we go, you can feel that. Let's recheck this one. There we go. And that in a nutshell is pretty much headset adjustment. So it's a simple, as I say, compression system that's used on modern headsets. And once you've retightened that stem up now, it's now locked back in place on that steerer tube. The headset bearings are now correctly preloaded. No slack feeling in that at all. That's great. There is one thing to be aware of though, and that is if, as you're taking your top cap adjustment down, if you're making that adjustment and it feels very much like you come up against a hard stop with the bolt, that's a sign that you maybe need to just check the headset spacing either below or above your stem, and just to see how that's all working out, because it's likely, and I'll just quickly undo this one so you can see, it'll be quite easy to see with this stem being blue as well. Actually, it will show up nicely. It's likely that what's happening there is that the top cap is coming down and bottoming out against the top of the steerer tube. Okay, so therefore it's not able to fully do its job and carry on compressing and preloading the headset as it should do. So if that is the case, again, it's an easy fix. What you need to do is add in one more slim spacer, or indeed change the width of the spacer that's already there, just so that And I can show you visually actually, if I pop in a smaller spacer quickly. So that spacer there, for instance, you can see it's very close to the top of the steerer tube, so that were I now to put my top cap onto there, it's going to bottom out before it's really started taking up the slack in the system. So yeah, definitely something to watch out for with headset adjustment. Make sure that there is sufficient room above the steerer tube, as is the case now with this deeper spacer, so that when the top cap is on, there's plenty of room for the adjustment to take place. Okay, so yeah, hopefully that's pretty straightforward. If you've enjoyed this content, do check out some of our other how-to videos on the Cyclist Magazine YouTube channel, and also head over to cyclist.co.uk. Thanks for watching.